Beach FM, locals talking to locals.
It's my very great pleasure to welcome to the program one of the ladies who's got a very jammy job.
Yes.
Because she pops along to that wonderful Shoreline Cinema and sees these wonderful movies. Jan Dykstra, good morning and welcome to you.
Yes, good morning, John. It's nice to be sitting here talking to you today.
Lovely to talk to you. And we've got a Maiden's Tale, apparently.
We have. The film I saw was Maiden. And, of course there's been the book Maiden, the story of Tracy Edwards' voyage. So the film is directed by Alex Holmes. It's just over an hour and a half long, so it's quite a nice film to sit with a glass of wine if you go at the right time of day, and I think quite often this week it's showing sort of later in the afternoon.
You've heard Steven Spielberg's quote, have you?
No.
He says there is a bomb that goes off in most cinema goers' rear at 90 minutes.
Oh, yes.
And anything after 90 minutes has got to be really, really good.
Didn't Hitchcock say something similar about...
He probably did.
Mr.
Spielberg has been known to...
the duration of a bladder's endurance.
Yes,
something like that.
And that tends to shorten as time goes by. However, let's move on to Maiden.
Maiden. Well, as we all know the story of Tracy Edwards, in 1989, she led the first all-female crew in the Whitbread Around the World race, a gruelling yachting competition that covers 33,000 nautical miles and lasts 9 months. Maiden was her boat, and this is her story. A timely and relevant story about bold women breaking down barriers. Now, the film opens with old video footage of Tracy as a young child who had a pretty normal and happy life until her beloved father died from a heart attack when Tracy was only 10 years old. Oh. Now, her mother courageously tried to carry on the business that her husband had of the hi-fi equipment business, but was to learn, this was back in 1972, that it was a man's world in which she was struggling. So she remarried, sold her home in Reading, and moved to Wales. Well, for Tracy, all this change was an absolute disaster. Her stepfather was an alcoholic. He was violent and abusive. Her childhood friend, Jo Gooding, who went on to become a vital part of her crew aboard Maiden, she recalled, in the documentary part of the film, recalled witnessing the violent beatings that Tracy received and saw the way that she fought back, at the age of 12. Oh. She was just a little fighter, a battler. She shouldn't have been treated like that. No child should.
No way.
So school was a total disaster for Tracy, as you can imagine. She was suspended more than 20 times before eventually being expelled at 16. So she ran away and went backpacking around Europe. So she wound up working in a bar in Greece where a customer asked if she wanted a job on his yacht. It was a charter boat, so she became a stewardess, and during a stop in Martha's Vineyard she met King Hussein of Jordan. Well, that totally
Martha's
changed.
Vineyard in the States?
Yes.
Right,
so of Jordan, who told her, he spent a lot of time talking to this wonderful, girl who would listen and be encouraged. And he told her, with faith, honour and courage, anything is possible. Because she didn't want to really be a stewardess or a cook on a boat. She wanted to sail. So she wrote down the advice that he'd told her on a piece of paper, and it went around the world with her on her navigation station, his words. Well, shortly after meeting King Hussein, she joined the crew of Atlantic Privateer and sailed in the 1985-86 Whitbread. And she was one of 4 women in the entire race out of 230 crew, all up. And she was only there as she enlisted as a cook, which she didn't like at all. She didn't like having to do the cooking because she wanted to sail. And she enjoyed most of all the navigating, so decided, well, if the world doesn't exist as I want it to exist, then I need to change it. So she spent the next 3 years assembling the Whitbread's first all-female crew. Well, funding was a problem, of course. She needed £1 million. So it was near to impossible. So she ended up buying a 10-year-old 58-foot aluminium yacht called Prestige, which she renamed Maiden. Well, she did this by remortgaging her house, and I think then she remortgaged the boat to try and get the money to fix the the boat because it was in pretty bad state of repair. Yeah.
Okay.
So Tracy and her crew set about, remembering all women crew, set about restoring the boat themselves, learning new skills as they went, plumbing being one of them. It was pretty vital on a boat. Desperate for sponsors, because it was now just a year out from the challenge, she turned to her old acquaintance, King Hussein, who offered the support of Royal Jordanian Airlines. Well, few people expected the team to even finish the race. A bunch of girls.
I remember it. I love sailing, and I remember the whole incident.
I remember the way they were treated. Well, after the race, as the race started, journalists headed straight to the pubs after the starting gun to run books on when they'd come limping back into port. Before they reached the Needles, or would they even make the Canaries? Well, they certainly wouldn't make the first leg. They wouldn't, let alone finish the 33,000 miles. Watching the footage of the most treacherous of the 6 legs from Uruguay to Australia, coming into Fremantle, through the freezing waters of the Antarctic, 40 degrees minus, snow all over the front of the
treacherous, that Southern Ocean.
Treacherous. They were all strapped on board, So I had my heart in my mouth watching this. It was just amazing. And these women were amazingly strong, courageous, determined group of women. And these women were facing rampant sexism, particularly from the media. There's one journalist, Bob Fisher. I don't know if you remember.
I know.
Bob
Fisher. I've actually interviewed him. Yes.
Yeah, he called them a tin full of tarts. He called the boat a tin full of tarts.
Yes.
Well, so disparaging. And when they came into Fremantle, when they had actually won that leg, the questions weren't about their tactics. It wasn't anything to do with sailing. It was all about, how does a bunch of women on board get on? It's like the men weren't subjected to that sort of, are you all lesbians? All these sort of questions.
Things haven't improved very much these days, actually, when you think
about it. At one point,
it.
Tracy was asked, was she a feminist? I'm not sure if she actually understood at that tender age of 27 what that meant, but she said, no, I don't think so. But having completed it now, with the wisdom of a 57-year-old, she said, yes, I am a feminist. Yes,
of course
she understands that we're entitled to, equal opportunities and as to men. So, definitely, she does them a great turn, feminists of this world, which we all should be. So this film is exhilarating, it's riveting, it's eye-opening and inspirational. And, you don't need to be a sailor, John, or know anything about sailing to go along and enjoy it. It's just wonderful.
But eventually the people spoke, didn't they? And the arrival in Auckland was something to behold.
It was. There were parades done, but they couldn't believe it because Tracy was actually in tears when they didn't win, I think, one of the legs. She didn't realise how much she'd succeeded. Look at all the other boats that didn't win those legs. They won 2 of their legs. Yeah. They won the first one, the Uruguay to Fremantle, and then Fremantle to Auckland. It was incredible. And then she was awarded the Yachtsman of the Year, the trophy, which was handed to, of course, by Peter Blake. It was wonderful to see Grant Dalton there on his Fisher and Paykel and Peter Blake on Steinlager too. So there's wonderful footage in that film.
Wonderful. So you mentioned there's real life footage, sort of documentary type footage.
Yes,
is there any acting?
No, there were no actors.
It is a pure documentary.
And 2 of the women on board did the filming for the on-board shots. So
goodness.
One woman, Dutch woman, I believe, Bassas.
And what's the quality of the filming like?
Very good.
Great.
Excellent. It's excellent. So there's also the static interviews with a couple of Tracy herself and Jo Gooding, who was her friend from childhood, and some of the journalists, including the Bob Fisher.
And how was Bob in retrospect?
Oh, well, in retrospect, he realises just, what an ass he'd made of himself.
Yes.
I think I mispronounced that. Ass, I meant to say.
Yes, I think they would, the Poms.
Yes.
But, an extraordinary story. So, as soon as I heard about that, I thought, I'm going to see
you do need to see it.
I'm going to see that.
Yeah, it was wonderful. The film was pretty full for a first viewing. And,
excellent.
All but myself had a glass of wine in their hand. I thought I'd stick to coffee.
Excellent. And of course, this is the Shoreline where
Yes,
a glass in the
wonderful.
hand seems
Yes.
to go down rather well in the
It
comfortable
does, and it was the
chair.
right time of day. I actually regretted my choice, actually, because I thought, it's a bit late for coffee. But I hadn't had lunch. It would have gone straight to my head and I might have dozed off and missed it.
It's about the sun over the mainmast. Well,
Yes,
that is
absolutely.
lovely. Jen,
Yeah.
thank you very much for
Great
joining
fun.
us. And do you know when it's on at the Shoreline?
It's on just once a day, and mostly around that time that I saw it, around
Right.
4:45.
Okay.
I think there's sort of a midday one on one of the days. I did have the schedule. It's probably
Okay,
still
and
in
it
there.
is recommended.
Very
by
much
your
so.
good self.
Wonderful. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Good on you.
Okay.
And good on Tracy. Great stuff.
Wonderful, Tracy.
Wonderful stuff. Okay, that is Maiden at the Shoreline Cinema in wonderful Waikanae.
106.3 Beach FM.